This is the tutorial for Chapter 1, Section 1, Chapter 1, Section 2, Quiz number 1. So let's take a look at our first problem here. Here we're trying to solve this equation, so I'm going to do opposite operations to solve. And so I'm adding 7 to both sides. I'm left with 8y equals 16. When I divide by 8, I'm left with y equals 2. So we're going to check to see if that solution's correct by substituting 2 back in for y. So when I do that, I'm left with 16 minus 7. I see if it does equal 9. 9 does equal 9. It checks out, so I know I did it correct. On this one, I want to subtract 6. So you don't look at the sign behind, you look at the sign in front. If you see no sign, it's positive. So I got to take 6 away from both sides, and I'm left with that negative g, so I got to bring down that sign, equals negative 6 1/5. So when they're the same sign, I end up adding the opposite, and that's what I end up getting there. So I'm dividing by negative 1, and I'm left with g equals 6/5 is the answer. So let's see if this matches up. What I can do is take that 6/5 and substitute it in for g. So 6 minus 6 1/5, and see if it equals negative 1/5. Well, when I'm taking more away than what I started with, it is negative. And when I subtract 6 1/5 from 6, I do get 1/5. So those do check out. So yes, I am correct in this case. Here it says they give us this formula which represents the after-tax cost. So that's what C represents. So C is the after-tax cost for an item with a purchase price. So P represents the purchase price. We're supposed to find the purchase price. That's what they're looking for. So we're going to find P if the after-tax cost is $62.54. So that's what C represents, $62.54. So we're going to substitute that into the equation and then solve. So when I go ahead and do this, I'm going to combine these two terms right now. This is 1p plus 6/100ths p. That makes 1 6/100ths p. So I divide by 1 6/100ths. And when I did that division, you move the decimal point over 2 spaces and you end up with $59. So $59 is the cost, or is the purchase price. So let's take a look at our third problem here. And this one asks us to solve this equation and check our solutions. So what we're going to end up doing is starting with negative 3 and distributing it over that addition or subtraction in this case. And we got to be real careful here. Negative 3 times negative 4 gives me a positive 12. And so I go ahead and add the 3 and it's set it equal to negative 3. And I need to put a 3h here, negative 3h. So I'm collecting like terms here. They're the same sign. So I'm going to add those two numbers together. And so that makes positive 15, and then I've got the negative 3h equals negative 3. So I'm going to subtract the 15 from both sides. When they're the same sign I add, I get negative 18 equals negative 3h. So I divide by negative 3, and I'm left with h equals 6. So I'll check the solution real quick, see if it works. So negative 3 multiplied by 6 minus 4, and then I add the 3, and it should equal negative 3. Let's see if it does. So negative 3 times 2 plus 3, so this makes negative 6 plus 3, and when they're opposite signs, I do subtract, and yes, they do equal each other, so they do check out. Here we're supposed to do two things: find x, and then find the angle measures of each of the angles in the polygon. So we've got these different angles and they sum to 180 degrees. So I'm going to take the angles, x plus 20, 3x, and 60. Now I added them this way so it didn't take up so much room going vertically. And this will equal 180 degrees. So I'm adding up the x's first, that makes 4x. I'll add up the constants, I get 80, and then I can go ahead and subtract 80 from both sides. So I'm left with 4x equals 100. I divide by 4, so x is 25. So that's part of the answer. Now we have to take the 25 and substitute it into these expressions. So 45 degrees for this angle here. 3 times 25 makes 75, so 75 degrees there and 60 degrees here. says your school's football team scored 49 points. Your team's score was 19 points more than the opponent's score. Write and solve an equation to find the opponent's score. So let's say x equals the opponent's score. And so what we'll do is we'll say x does not equal 49, which is our score. Our score is 19 points more than the opponent's score. So I have to add 19 points to the opponent's score to equal our score. So this is part of it. This is the writing portion. Now we're going to solve. So to solve this, I go ahead and subtract 19 from both sides, and I'm left with 30. 30, and then give it some units. 30 points. Let's take a look at the next problem here. And on this one, it gives us an equation. The equation right up here says that 49 equals 1 minus 8y. So I need to subtract 1 from both sides, and that leaves me with 48. I have to bring down that negative sign that's in front of the 8y. And if I didn't, I'd get the wrong sign. I have to divide by negative 8, so y equals negative 6. On this one, I subtract the 3 from both sides, leaving me with 11 equals negative 3/5 y. So I'm multiplying by the reciprocal. The reciprocal will cancel out the 3's, it'll cancel out the 5's, and the negative signs will cancel, leaving me with y. Now whatever I do to one side, I have to do the same thing to the other side. It doesn't matter where the negative sign goes, it just matters that the 5 and the 3 are in the right positioning of the fraction. So here they are, and we go ahead and multiply across. Since there's no cross canceling, I'm left with negative 55 thirds. And so if I was to divide 3 into 55, it goes 18 with 1 left over. So negative 18 and 1/3, which also equals negative 18.3 repeated. So any of those answers are fine. So looking at our last problem here, it says that you earn $7.50 per hour. So this is a wage. And so that's how much we make every hour, it says. And it says you earn $33.75. That's the total amount. So we're doing two things. We're going to write and solve to find out how many hours. So this is the variable. This is the variable term. So how many hours you worked. So we're going to say H equals hours worked. So whatever the question is what we're going to assign our variable as. So if I take the wage, $7.50, multiply it by the hours worked, it will equal $33.75. So from this point, I divide by 7.5, move the decimal point over one space in both the divisor and the dividend. You got to make the decimal point in the divisor all the way over so it becomes a whole number, and then do the division. So H ends up equaling 4 5/10. So 4 5/10 hours is our answer. Those are the problems on the test. Good luck.